Okay, we're going to go live.
Okay.
And we
we're
should be
live.
live. I just got the notification that we are live. Welcome to Gen XP Episode 2. After all of our technical difficulties were solved, we are now live. So, welcome.
Presumably.
Hopefully this works. So, welcome to Episode 2. Craig Lutke of the Bilge Pumps, welcome.
Hello.
So hopefully, I thought we lost you for a second there.
I did too.
Nope. One word is all you get at any particular time. We're gonna lock it down. Every syllable costs money.
Okay, stream over, bye.
Okay. Okay.
We have no money.
Damn it!
Yeah,
neither do I. We gotta fix this.
We thought you were paying us for this, so. but we are live week 2. As you can see on the screen with this wonderful graphic, Craig, welcome. Pirate, wannabe musician, could have been a contender. And he's checking the thing.
Oh,
There we go.
we're good.
And we're working. Thank you for verifying that live on stream, Brett.
I don't think it got through the. Oh shit! You forgot to turn off the.
Oh.
Is there a buzzing in the background?
Yep.
Okay.
But it's faint.
Okay, if it's faint, I can live with that. I'll live with faint buzzing over a 100-degree studio any day.
I was assuming it's some type of an unmentionable toy.
Nope, just an air conditioner.
Keep that off the stream.
So we're
You
gonna
could
go
sit on it and accomplish the same thing.
We are off to a great start.
I like to start with the lowest common denominator and then work our way up.
All right, perfect.
I
That
think we're starting at the top and now it's just free fall.
either way. So
Where do we go from here? Nowhere.
yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Well, this has been fun. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. No. But as I said, we're live. Craig Lucky of the Bilge Pumps, full-time programmer, part-time pirate. The image on the screen there would prove otherwise, but I guess an image of a program.
Pictures of people sitting at a computer typing are a little bit lackluster.
True. I mean,
Pirate on
what's
a
it?
cannon.
Yeah, pirate on a
Craig
cannon.
computer.
Yeah. I feel like this thumbnail is gonna draw some more people than if it was just you sitting at a computer.
Unless I was sitting on a cannon.
At a computer.
At a computer.
Right. It's one of those new ergonomic office chairs that everybody likes to talk about. You could be sitting on a ball or sitting on a cannon or standing.
Yeah, and then, you're sitting on a cannon, someone tries to steal your stapler, you can retaliate.
Right. So you give me 5 minutes, I'm going to turn this cannon around and blow your ass off. If I could just find my winch. And I mean like the cranking winch, not the old school lady winch.
All right.
The kind you find in a toolbox, not at a tavern.
All right, so we're just going to jump right into this. Craig, you want to tell us a little bit about the history of the Bilge Pumps?
Well, we started, actually we kind of pre-started back at the days of the Hawkwood Medieval Fantasy Fair in Roanoke, Texas, which is just right next to where the Texas Motor Speedway is now. And they had just built it, or were just in the middle of building it back when Hawkwood first started, so we always had to watch out for race weekends because it would clog the entire roadway down to nothing. So those are like the weekends everybody would camp out at Hawkwood as opposed to driving in. But I digress. And my first year at Hawkwood, I was invited in to be part of a Highland Games troupe for one of their guest performances. I was one of the cast members out at the fair, and they thought it'd be fun to bring in some cast members to do the last show of the day, and I think it's mainly because the performers didn't want to do that final show of the day because it was hot outside. So we got to get up there and do it in their place. But one of the people taught me how to toss a caber and throw the weights and do all the things correctly without breaking your spine. And it worked out well enough that the next year they invited a bunch of us back to become part of the show. And we changed the show from being strictly a competition, which is neat to a degree, but after a while, especially in the heat, if you're not doing anything to entertain anybody, they're walking away. Mm-hmm. So we changed it into a comedy show in the respect, thinking along the lines of like those Naked Gun movies where you see somebody up front talking to each other and kind of having a serious conversation, and in the background, all hell's breaking loose. People slipping on bananas and feathers flying everywhere. And that's kind of what was going on. We had two hosts that would talk to each other and explain the events that were going on. And while they were explaining, all the rest of us goofy Scots in the background were getting into sword fights and throwing things around at each other. And it would just chaos. And then they turn around and look at us, and we'd be standing there smiling really big, shit-eating grins on our faces and whatnot. And that lasted for 2 or 3 years. We kind of turned it into a traveling show, which traveling with a bunch of telephone poles, if you don't have a trailer, sucks. FYI. If you wanted to start a Highland Games troupe, make sure you got a big rig or something.
I will keep that in mind.
We did that for a few years, or a couple of years, doing various festivals. And while we were at these shows, we used to try to think of ways to try to pull people over to our section of the fair, especially on really hot, miserable days. The attendance would be down, so we'd start shouting before the show as loud as we could to bring people over. And then as people would go in, the hosts would entertain them back and forth with whatever dialogue, and then we'd all come walking in when it was time to start the show. And instead of just walking in and dialoguing with each other, we started pulling bits off from the movie Cadence. You guys remember that with Lawrence Fishburne, where they're all like marching together and singing,
Yes.
songs that, in cadence with each other, and kind of like Bill Murray from Stripes, same type of deal. We'd all come in singing stupid versions of songs, and then instead of just doing do-wah-diddy over and over again, we started doing Scottish versions of these rock tunes, and we were amusing ourselves to the point where we started. One of our members could play guitar, so he would get up on stage and we'd all start doing Scottish filked versions of songs, which, if you don't know, the term filking means that it's basically the Weird Al-ing a song. You take an existing melody and you change the lyrics slightly to change the topic completely, but keep the rhyme scheme in place so that it's a recognizable song, but the whole entire meaning changes and you turn it into jokes.
Okay.
And so instead of the Hotel California, you get the Hotel Caledonia. You get the sheep shag strut instead of the stray cat strut, and Caledonian Rhapsody and Sweet Home Caledonia and all sorts of things like that would start rattling off. And it got to the point where we were solid enough that we were up at the castle at Muskogee, I think it was back in 97 or 98, and they started wanting us to go up on Pub Sing and do these things, even though we were a Highland Games troupe. People were like, get up there and do Hotel Sweet Home Caledonia, and they yell for us to do it. The cast and the patrons wanted us to do it, but I think after a while the ownership was like, yeah, that's not exactly Renaissance-y. That's if they're doing Highland game version of Skinnerd. So that show kind of took its progression. Everybody started breaking up and doing their own things, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of keep that group together. So I wanted to start a different band, and there was some of the boring days out at Hawkwood, in between some of our shows, we'd start with just walking around singing these various songs. And a lot of the songs that everybody knew were these sea shanties because they're easy. They're designed to be easy. They're working songs, so somebody would just sing a verse and everybody else would sing the response to it, a call and response type music. We just walk around the lane singing it, and it kind of added a little ambiance, was kind of neat. And some of the original members of the Bilge Pumps that I contacted to start the whole thing were all people that would kind of walk around with us and do these songs with us. So I thought it might be interesting to bring them in. And they were also part of my stunt show. So a lot of them were part of my stunt show that we were doing at Hawkwood back in the days, which is a whole nother long sordid tale of stories about stunt shows. But so I already had familiarity with them. So when we got together, we, instead of doing bad Scottish tunes, we started doing bad pirate tunes, and had a couple of rehearsals. Went out to the Texas Renaissance Festival back in '99 just to kind of test the waters and see how we were going to do. And we just walked around in the lanes, finding different spots to sing just out of nowhere. And we did the same thing at Dickens on the Strand that year, just finding places out of the rain because it was a miserable rainy weekend. And kind of proof of concept worked out well. And then I started hustling hard to get us our first gig. And our first gig was Mardi Gras Galveston, which at the time was a one-weekend festival being run by the Galveston Parks Board, and it would pull in like 200,000 people over the weekend.
Oh, wow.
Which, yeah, welcome to the water. And they're like, okay, you guys can do a 2-hour set. We're like, sure. And we had maybe 80 minutes worth of material. And so we would, there's going to be a lot of us talking, but we quickly found out that the way to survive at Mardi Gras is to just bring cases of beads, and you can kill all the time you need to. Just throw beads out, and people will gather around your stage. They don't really care what you're doing. So that was our first paying gig was Mardi Gras, and we've been back every year since then, with the exceptions of the years that they quit doing stage acts. There was a contention, I guess, between the Parks Board and the city of Galveston as to who was paying for the police presence to keep the streets clean, and they stopped doing it for like 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then they brought it back, and Yaga's restaurant down there now has an entertainment company, and they're the ones running Mardi Gras. And we've been back ever since they started it back up again.
Excellent.
Surprisingly.
Excellent. Well, I know I've been catching you guys once a year at the Medieval Fair in Norman, Oklahoma. So my question is, why medieval fairs?
Well, number one, they were actually the first people to hire us. They weren't our first paid gig, but they were the first ones to hire us. I knew of the Medieval Fair, having lived in Oklahoma all my life up until I graduated from college, so I'd heard of it. I don't think I'd ever actually been there until we went up there to perform at it, though. And I just got a hold of the lady who was running it at the time, Linda. She'd been running it for years then and ran it for years after. And she thought it was a great idea. There was another band in Dallas-Fort Worth whenever we started up that was a pirate band called the Corsairs. But their style was different. They still did pirate music, and there was some song overlap, obviously, because we're doing pirate music and singing a lot of the same sea shanties. But they did everything in a very serious manner, and everything was a cappella in 3-part harmony. Sounded pretty, but it wasn't really the type of show that we were doing. We were trying to keep everybody laughing as much as, we probably do 2/3 funny songs and 1/3 serious if we can, keep it the way we'd like it. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't do Medieval Fair. They always wanted to, but they did Scarborough Fair every year, so that kind of opened up the door for us to get into Medieval Fair a little bit, so they weren't already camped out there.
All right.
Yeah. And when we got there, they stuck us. They were still over at the Duck Pond.
Yeah.
Back in '99, zero parking whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a performer or a patron, there was no parking at the Duck Pond. It's like you just did the best you could.
Yeah. And
they had us on the chessboard stage that first year before they moved it across the bridge, and it was basically you had this chessboard with 4 rows maybe of seating, and then a line of trees immediately behind it blocking you off from anybody walking by. So it was really hard to get anybody to come over to that stage. Mm-hmm. But we learned the fine art of hawking that first couple of years, where you get stuck in nasty spots. You get out there and try to drag people in as best you can, and we held people long enough. And despite the fact that we were just beginning, and obviously we're crude in design and in function, they liked us well enough to bring us back. And then the next year they moved that same stage. Actually, we weren't on the chessboard stage anymore. They moved us on a different stage across the creek. which is where they put a lot of the bigger musical acts. And we took off from there. I mean, that first year we were fighting to get, 50 people to sit down at your audience, and that next year, we would just walk on stage and you'd have 150 people waiting on you already.
Mm-hmm.
And the advantage of that wasn't necessarily because they knew who we were and they're like, yeah, the Bilge Pumps are coming. It was because the bridge was a bottleneck. So you'd have like these thousands of people all trying to get across this tiny little bridge, and then they'd all just wedge in and try to squeeze across. So as they sat there, waiting to be able to go across the bridge, we'd fire up a show, and they're like, oh, well, we might as well just sit down here and watch these guys,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to standing here in line.
Yeah.
Easy way to develop a following is to just trap them.
Yeah, I definitely remember the old Duck Pond days. The new location is a lot better.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot smoother. They've grown tremendously since moving over to Reeves Park.
Oh yes. That is.
Though it is not their fault. Everybody who complains about the parking over at Lloyd Noble, it is not the medieval fair people's fault that's going on. It's the university's like, you know what, we can make a couple extra bucks out of these people, so they start charging $5 a car for anybody who parks at Lloyd Noble and still has to walk a quarter of a mile to get to the festival.
Yeah. That's why whenever I'm up there, I'm always staying with family, and they know some of the other parking, other places to park off to the side where some of them are still paid, some of them aren't. It just depends on where you're at. But that's definitely a good event. Not sponsored or anything, but last weekend of March, first weekend of April, around in there, Medieval Fair, Norman, Oklahoma. Definitely a good event to check out.
Have you been there every year since then, or have there been years off?
No, we missed 2007. It was because of my daughter was due to be born about that time, and I didn't want to be up in Oklahoma and have her and my wife go into labor. She ended up being born on April 20th, so she missed it by a few weeks, but we were worried that it might happen at the time, so I called Linda and told her we weren't going to make it, and she said, well, it's probably just as well, because we'd had some people that wanted to kind of shake up the entertainment a little bit, so she hired another band called the Jolly Rogers, which are a pirate band based out of Kansas City. And they came down there and did the Medieval Fair for a year, and while we were missing. And I heard from a lot of people who were at that show that had no idea that we weren't coming. They just showed up, and they're like, who the hell are these guys? Where's our pirates at? And there were some people... And I'd heard about people getting up and leaving. They're just like, no, I don't know who you guys are. You're not my pirates. And they would just walk away. So because they weren't what you're expecting. Whether or not they gave them a chance, they're like, nope, I don't know who you are.
Mhm.
I want what I want, damn it.
Yeah, I know.
And then they when we told them to come back the next year, they're like, yeah, that didn't work out as well as we thought. So come on back.
Well, I know I've only missed 1 year of that event. I don't remember what year it was, but I know when I'm there, I always try to catch at least one of the sets, and you've got a good turnout up there.
Yeah, some of these shows we do where you struggle, even at a large fair like at the Texas Renaissance Festival, we did that for 4 years, and the stage we're on has a ton of walk-by traffic, but trying to get anybody to sit still is almost impossible out there unless you're at one of the larger stages where people are just kind of drawn to. So we would fight and fight and fight to get, 80 people at this festival that pulls in 40,000 people a weekend. We'd fight to get 80 people to come and sit down to some of our shows. And at the Medieval Fair, it's like, well, okay, we check the schedule. We know when you're coming on, and we don't even try. We don't ever get to get up there and start yelling, hey, our show's about to start. Everybody's waiting. Like, let's do this.
Yep.
It is nice getting a tad slice of the rock star vibe. And that also helps that fair doesn't charge to get in.
Yes.
You go to like a regular Renaissance fair like Scarborough or the Castle or somebody like that, and you're talking, $20, $25 a head to get your family in. So you're spending $100 to get everybody in the door, another $100 for the turkey legs and beer and sodas or whatever, Scotch eggs the kids want to eat. Kids are going to want something, so you got to go buy them the wooden sword or the princess hats or whatever it is that they want to get. So you're looking at another $50 there. So by the time some pirate band's like, "Hey, you want to buy a CD?" Gently, lovingly extending a middle finger to you, saying, "I'm totally broke. Thank you for the offer."
Yeah.
But at the medieval fair, you get in for free and people are ready to buy. So I know a lot of vendors do really well out there, and we've had years where we sell more at the medieval fair than we do at all our other shows combined, merchandise-wise.
Oh, wow. Yeah. But I know that particular event, without dropping any names, I know there's been, like you were saying, the year you missed where they brought in the other band. I know there's some other performers who are regulars there, who have been gone the last couple years, and people have been kind of going around asking like, "Hey, are the other guys coming back, or what's going on?" I know the way it kind of seems, at least from my perspective, with that particular event, is the ones who are there more regularly. If something happens and they're not there, then people are gonna kind of ask questions like, "Hey, what's going on? This is weird. We don't want these people. We want our regular people."
Maybe get a little upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was apparently a lot of that going on when we stopped doing the castle back in, I think 2006 was our last year doing the castle. There's a lot of people wanting to know what the hell happened to the bilge pumps, and we're like, and there was so many people asking me about it that I got tired of answering the question, so I just wrote a blog about it on our website. Just go read about it. It's a long story. You can get the full story there.
Mhm.
But yeah, the same type of deal. They go to exit surveys. They're like, "Where are the bilge pumps at? What happened to the guys?" Because apparently there was some other band that came in after us that was like a homegrown pirate band that hadn't really practiced much, and they weren't really lifting everybody's skirts very well. Now they've got like two pirate bands there. I think the Rogers and the Musical Blades both perform at Castle, so they are thick in pirates at the moment.
I love the way you put that.
It's funny how many of these festivals are all becoming piratey. You'd figure there'd be more people wanting to embrace doing just a strictly pirate show. I guess they're worried about maybe the longevity of it. The Renaissance fairs have shown staying power.
Mhm.
And everybody's, me, like a lot of people, are waiting for the whole pirate thing to finally be just like, you know what, I'm sick of Johnny Depp. I don't want to talk about pirates anymore. But they endearingly remain popular. Doesn't matter which side of life you fall on, if you're rich or you're poor, you're right wing, left wing, everybody likes pirates, seems like.
Mhm. This is where we need to cut in a clip of Corey doing Johnny Depp. For those of you who caught last week, Corey J. Phillips, our wonderful friend, impressionist, improviser, rabbit owner, he did a little bit of his Johnny Depp last week. So for Johnny Depp fans or just kind of impressionist fans, go check out our last week's video. So Craig, what do you have going on? Are you working on anything now with the band?
We are in the middle of which would be our 8th album. We have been working on it for quite a while, but we have the luxury of taking the time. We've had a couple of albums we did in the past where we really had to rush it because of various scheduling reasons, and it always came out like that. We were never happy with the way that it ended up. We just kind of were forced to make it the way we wanted to, or scrap it and start at a later date, and we were already too far into it. There's the law of diminishing returns going on there, where you're like, you know what, we've passed the point of no return. I don't really care what it sounds like. Just get it done.
I've had a few projects like that.
In fact, our very first album, our We Don't Know album, we recorded that before we ever did our first official gig. And we did it, it only had like about 12 tracks on it, which at the time, that seemed to be the standard for most people around the Ren Fair circuit, would only do like 10 or 12 tracks on a CD and then still charge you $15 for them. Granted, CDs were still in their heyday back then, so $15 for a CD, what a great price. Nowadays, everybody like, $5? I ain't paying $5 for a CD. But we went in the studio. I'm like, you know what? We're doing our first gig. We got to have CDs to sell for it. So we went into the studio, recorded the album in 8 hours, the entire album, and then mixed it in the next night in 8 hours, and then printed off a bunch of copies. I don't think we even had the CDs weren't available yet. They had to get back from the press for our first gig, so we had a whole bunch of cassettes, which we could still pull off back in 2000, that we were selling to everybody. And then our CDs were available. I think our second gig we ever did was our CD release party
Excellent.
at a band or at a bar in Dallas called the Celtic Quill, which we performed at twice. And then I think we were the last band to perform there before they closed it down and reopened it like a month later as a gay bar down in Dallas, which I thought was appropriate.
Oh goodness.
So,
And we've had another album that we were in the same studio. We're like, okay, we want to get this album done. We'll take our time to get it done. And the studio's like, we're closing in 2 weeks. We're like, what? Yep, if you want to use us, you got to record it in 2 weeks. So we were there for 2 weeks busting our butt trying to get it done, and we never did quite work out the way that I wanted it to. So it ended up getting pressed, and it sold pretty well, but that was like that one came out in 2006, and that was like the very end of the life of CDs. I mean, CDs are still around. People still buy them because when you go to a gig, you want to have something tangible to take home with you. But the people were still buying them back in 2006. By the time we came out with our next album, which was like 4 years later, our Christmas album, CDs were, everybody's like, what? No, man. Give me digital. That's what I want. If I can't steal it off of Napster, it doesn't exist.
oh, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Or Morpheus or Kazaa.
I've never heard of either of those.
Really?
You haven't heard of Morpheus or Kazaa?
I haven't.
Those were the highlight of the low bit rate or low baud rate days when you had to get a 56K modem and you had to download a song, and it took like 40 minutes to download a single 3 meg song.
Jeez.
I remember one of our band members was the first person I knew of that I had access to that had broadband internet, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I was going over to his place and ripping down songs off of Morpheus. Like, I can get all of the Police albums, and it only takes me 45 minutes to get them.
I knew about Napster and LimeWire. That's it.
Yeah, Morpheus, it was one of those things where you'd be like, it was a peer-to-peer like Napster was, and you'd go out and find somebody who was online and had a library available, and you'd be like, you'd click on these 3 songs, and you'd go to work and come back, and you'd be about half done downloading the songs.
We're discussing piracy.
Yay, we're discussing piracy with a pirate. That's the highlight of my day.
Yeah. There are many ways that you can steal from the cyber seas.
Well, a wonderful segue from that. You actually sent us over a track for people to get a little taste of what you're working on.
But you can get a chance to hear a song from our new album, which, if you've been to any of our shows, the song isn't really a secret. We perform it quite a bit, and it was actually inspired at the Medieval Fair, which if you've been up there enough times to know that at the end of a 3-day weekend, when you go walking by the giant line of porta potties in the middle of the fair, the emanations coming off of that are about enough to peel your boots clean off of you as you're walking down the path. And one of our band members had the lyrics to this in his head and wrote them like it was almost 10 years ago. I think he wrote the lyrics to this, and he kept trying to get our guitar player to write the melody for it, and he kept refusing. He's like, I'm not writing song for this, not writing lyrics for this crappy song, and he kept resisting. Oh, I'll get to it. And then as I slowly had to expand my musical repertoire out and started learning some guitar stuff, I took some things that I'd learned from my instructor and put together this kind of a flamenco sounding version of this cheese ball song. So I kind of like the dichotomy of the serious sounding tone with the incredibly stupid lyrics.
This is going to be
cool. It's called A Privy Wind.
All right. Well, here is a taste of something new coming up from the Bilge Pumps.
Our stage was set at the far north end, our backs against the trees. We started our performance as pretty as you please. But 2 verses into Rowdy Soul, the king let out a wheeze. The jouster started going limp, the fool went to his knees. Pretty wind, I thought that smell would never end. My poor nose I can't defend from the evil air of privy wind. Just then we saw them in a line, standing proud and plastic, beckoning each patron tired to drop a load fantastic. They'd not been clean since weekend last, and here it's Labor Day. The green cloud near obscured the sky, even buzzards stayed away. Privy wind, I thought that smell would never end. My poor nose I can't defend from the evil air of privy wind. Just then a bloke with a big cigar went preaching for the handle. With embers hot and methane gas, you could smell more than a scandal. The chain reaction blew the line, and now we're all the wiser. The memory garden planted there, it needs no fertilizer.
What a load of crap!
Privy wind, I thought that smell would never end. My poor nose I can't defend from the evil air of privy wind. Privy wind, I thought that smell would never end. My poor nose I can't defend from the evil air of privy wind.
And we are back after that wonderful song.
So that was,
Wonderful in quotes, air quotes.
I enjoyed it.
as did I.
It gives a certain odor.
Oh. Yeah, that
And it
brings-
doesn't matter what festival we perform that song at, everybody gets it. Doesn't matter whether it's porta potties or not, everybody knows that funk when you go walking in to try to use the potty. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah, that brings me back to the wonderful, late March, early April. It always rains that weekend, so it's always about 70, 80 degrees, about 80% humidity, and then you walk past those, and yeah, that brings me back.
And the nicest one, I guess, was that year that the Sunday of the medieval fair, it was so frigging freezing. It's been about, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago. And it was so cold that we couldn't even set up our tent because the wind was blowing so hard it ripped our tent completely apart that we were trying to sell stuff out of. So we just packed everything up, sat in the car, and listened to or watched videos or listened to the song on the radio with our heater on until it was time to start the show, and everybody jumped out and ran and did the thing. You couldn't smell the privies because your nose is frozen. You had that one year that it was Oklahoma in the spring is always a gamble anyway, but that one year the wind was blowing so hard and it was the middle of a drought and everybody was just stomping the grass into dust, and the wind was blowing out of the south right into our faces at our tent. So no matter where we went, everything was covered in grass. It's like, you want to buy a CD? Well, you just brush it off and you can see which one it is. We had one show we did where all 6 of us are on stage wearing our sunglasses at the same time because you couldn't see if you didn't. You were just squinting into the sun and into the hay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they don't look much like pirates to me. It's like, we're like the Springsteen of pirates, man.
The Springsteen of pirates. I'll quote that on the description of this video.
Okay, that reminds me of another story.
Maybe.
Speaking of Springsteen and pirates, I can tie those together. We were doing a fair, and it was a strange fair because everybody seemed to be angry for whatever reason. I found out later on that apparently the entertainment director was in a torquey mood and had made the cast and all the performers and everybody just mad. And we had just got through doing "Pay Me" on stage to wrap up the show, which most every pirate band has done at some point or another. Whether you do it all the time or just do it some of the time, most people will do it. And you'll hear the occasional pirate bands that like to claim that they're the ones who invented it, but I'm like, you really think you invented singing "Pay Me" for your money, despite the fact that song has been around for 200 years? And we were walking backstage, and I can't tell to this day whether he was serious or whether he was being very dry of humor. But one of the performers said, we're the ones who did that song at first, and Springsteen ripped us off. I'm like, what? Because that was about the time that Springsteen did his Seeger Sessions album, where he was doing like all these old school nautical songs, and one of them he did was like that really kind of a Zydeco version of "Pay Me" that he was doing, which sounded really cool. But he's like, Springsteen ripped us off, man, and just dead serious face when he said it. We're looking at him with our mouth agape, like, you can't be serious about that. And we just rolled on. We're like, hey, man, if you feel you deserve the credit, I fully give it to you. I would take that up with Bruce and see if he'll give you the cut of the album take. And he probably was just being very tongue in cheek, and we don't know him well enough to know his humor, but still, we're just like, huh?
You've produced and owned festivals, you said here? Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, we did back in 2002, we did put on a festival called Wild Western Days, which I thought was a great concept, which is basically a Western version of a Ren Fair. You get the whole idea of the concept of the Ren Fair, the type of the stages and the vendors and the kind of the cast type thing. But most Western events you go to tend to either be like chili cook-offs, or everybody's just sitting around wagons eating chili and talking to each other, or it's like a reenactment where you walk in and watch a bunch of people shout at each other across the street. I'm going to shoot you. Don't you shoot me. I'm going to shoot you. Don't you shoot me. Go on for like 45 minutes where they threaten to shoot each other until like you get 3 seconds of gunfire, and then it's all over. Like which, granted, was very close to, I'm sure, what happened in the actual Old West, but it's not really that entertaining to stare at.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that Seth MacFarlane Western movie.
Yeah. A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah.
And we had just finished, I guess, the run of Hawkwood, and had been doing our stunt show there for 4 years. And we were eating dinner at an Italian food place somewhere, and we overheard these people talking about putting on the show. And I'm like, man, if we only knew somebody who could do an Old West stunt show. And they were very loud, performer types that were just, producer types that were talking louder than everybody else in the thing. And our ears perked up over there. We're like, I could do that. So we leaned over there and we kind of gave them a card, said, hey, we just got through doing a show. It'd be very simple to adapt it to the Old West. And it happened to be in a fundraiser to try to raise money for right after 9/11 for the New York Fire Department. And they got like a bunch of Barry Corbin and Buck Taylor and a bunch of these Old West actors from back in the 70s all came out and were helping to raise money and raise awareness. And we told them that we would do a stunt show once an hour. It'd be like a 10-minute show. We do it once an hour for like 6 hours. And there was just south of Dallas, there's an Old West town called Old Fort Dallas that is done up like a movie set kind of. It's a bunch of really good-looking facades, and it looks like an Old West town you could shoot a film on. Mm-hmm. And we took over a corner of it and turned it into the bank / jail. And then we had the saloon / I forget what the other one was. The saloon / I forget what we call it, where the undertaker. And we set up a bunch of hay bales to disguise our crash pads and did a show once an hour, every hour. And that it got a well enough response, or a good enough response, that we decided to make that the cornerstone of a festival. So we went down to Alvarado, Texas, which is just south of Dallas, kind of a smaller town, 5,000 or 6,000 people, I guess, maybe. I don't really know. Probably more than that. I'm not good with populations. And we found some of these antique, I say antique, they're actually original 1800s log cabins that needed some fixing up, and they said that if you would help us fix these things up, we will. You can do your show out here, and they weren't going to charge us for it. We're like, deal. So we were making it a big thing. We found some friends of ours around the circuit that could adapt their show to the Old West very easily. Like some friends of ours, the duelists, that do a sword fight show, the manly art of the duel. They would change it around to make it a lot of bull whips and pistols, and instead of long swords, they'd use cavalry sabers and things like that, where they could, they were looking forward to the ability to kind of change the theme of their show somewhat. And we knew a bunch of people that could do belly dancing, that could turn that into flamenco and whatnot, and still make it an entertaining event. We had a lot of really good pre-sales, ticket sales. We had a lot of good sponsors. The Fort Worth Star Telegram was one of the big sponsors, and they were giving us a lot of advertising space, and everybody was very excited about it. Had a lot of vendors out there. It was going to be a really good show. The night before, it was 85 degrees at about 8 o'clock. And this was in like late February 22nd, I think. And the next morning, the wind chill was -20, and everything was covered in ice.
Ooh.
We got completely screwed by the weather. And I remember looking at the forecast like 5 days ahead of time, and it was just like 80, 80, 80, 80 snow. I'm like, oh, bullshit. There's not going to snow on the weekend. And every day we'd look at it, and it just kept getting worse. It's like the temperature got lower and lower and lower. It got so bad that we ended up having people still came to the festival that bought tickets, surprisingly, because apparently the ice line ended right about where we were. And if you were driving down from Dallas, you had to drive through the ice. But if you were driving up from like Hillsborough or Waco, there wasn't any ice at all. You know, like, oh, it's perfectly great until as soon as we got here, and then everything got covered in ice. So we couldn't do our stunt shows outside because you don't really want to do a stunt show on a sheet of ice. So we moved everything into this big pavilion, and everybody kind of did their own tiny little versions of their shows and had to share the same stage. And then the next day we all went outside where the ice was gone, but it was still butt cold, but we still managed to pull off a handful of shows. But that basically torpedoed our event to where, you can't really bring in any money, but we invested a lot of the money to go there. They say that you're supposed to, when you start a festival, make sure you can fail the first couple of times, but there's a difference between failing and getting hammered like that, where it's like failing means you bring in about half as many people as you're expecting, not 1/10 as many people as you're expecting. Mm-hmm. So we gave it another try in September, but by that point everybody was kind of sick of it. So I think they lost all heart, so it didn't end up going any farther than the first two events. But yeah, I thought people that came to it, especially the September show when it wasn't freezing cold, all really liked it. It just never took off, which is a shame. I thought we had a great idea and pretty good execution of it. Little did we know. Ice, baby. Speaking of pirating.
Speaking of pirating. So
Oh man, it's totally different. Theirs is dun 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 dun, and ours is dun 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 dun. See, it's a different song, totally, man.
Yeah, you can never tell. Is it going to be Vanilla Ice? Is it going to be Queen?
Back in the when I was in college, I'd have been like, that's got to be Vanilla Ice. I don't even know who. I barely even knew who Queen was. I knew of them, and I knew everybody knew, Bohemian Rhapsody and Another One Bites the Dust and stuff like that. But I wasn't really into the Queen that much in college. It was all about Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer. That's what it's all about. And now. I'll listen to Vanilla Ice because the minute it says, all right, stop, everybody either says Hammer Time or Collaborate and Listen right behind that, depending on which way you leaned in the 90s. And so I'll still, sing along with MC Hammer or Ice, but I'm very much more into Queen because I'm much more of a musical person, I guess, now than back in the days when you just wanted something to sing with. Nobody can really sing with Freddie Mercury very well.
That is true.
Doesn't stop them from trying. They can't.
That is true. Although when they released Suicide Squad, the version of Bohemian Rhapsody that Panic at the Disco did, not as good as the original. I mean, nothing is ever as good as the original, but I feel like Brendan did that justice. That was a good cover.
It takes a special set of huevos to even try a remake, bringing it down to, even if you're changing the key, it's hard to pull off, because he's doing like 3-octave range on that song.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah, that was our attempt at producing a show, and it worked out sort of great. And that was about the last time we did the I would say the last time we did the stunt show, but we fired the stunt show back up again, the Dragon Attack medieval version of the stunt show back at the castle in 2004, and it turned out pretty well. We ended up driving up there 22 weekends in the off season to build the stage from below the ground up. I mean, they went out there and dug a pit for us, and then they would bring in the materials, and me and our gang of idiots would go up there and just build the ships from the ground up, and then we'd build a dock, and we build a fort and all that stuff, and we made a giant stunt show out of the whole thing. And nobody had ever done a stunt show like that at like a Renaissance. We did it out at Hawkwood, and there was a lot of people talking about doing their versions of stunt shows, but it never happens because it's a big pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
And the liability of it, people are just like, no man, I don't want to pay for the insurance on it if nothing else. And we had a couple of shows, especially about the middle of the run of Muskogee, as people started to figure out that there was an actual show down there. I had the idea back at Hawkwood and early on to begin every show with a giant explosion. Find a way to make it into the script, even if it's just like, what's that? Boom, and something goes off. As long as you start the show with an explosion, that lets everybody know the show is started, or it's about to start. And towards the end of the run of Muskogee, the opening boom would go off, and you'd see people running down the path. They're like, oh crap, the show's starting, and they'd all haul butt down to where we're at. And rightfully so, the joust is almost always the largest attended event at any Ren fair or medieval fair, because the giant arena has the biggest seating.
Mm-hmm.
But towards those last couple of weekends at Muskogee, we were pulling in more people down there than the joust was, even though there was no place for them to sit. They would all just go stand around. They blocked the paths. They'd be inside of other people's shops, leaning out the window. It was just a thick sea of people down there just watching it go on.
Oh, excellent.
And then we, after spending 22 weekends up there building that stage and putting on the show, we were going back up there to start the next off season to expand it out and make it even bigger and better. And he came up and he offered us a contract for half of what we did the year before.
Ooh.
I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I assumed that you knew that I was paying you for coming up there and building this stage. I'm like, you couldn't have afforded us to build this stage if you wanted us to pay us to do it. It was a pure labor of love. He's like, well, you may have to just cut down the number of people in the show. No. You may only see 6 people on stage, but there's another 6 backstage doing stuff. Well, I only pay what I can see on stage. I'm like, I'm done. So we walked away and didn't do the stunt show anymore. We went back as the Bilge Pumps a couple more years because people, we still had a fan base down there, but I wasn't going to go up there and put any more of my extra time in. The good news is, building the stages for all those years between Hawkwood and the castle, I amassed a giant wad of power tools, so now I can build whatever the crap I want.
Excellent.
And then jump off of it. Or blow it up, depending on how you look at it.
Well, kind of tying that back in with more of the music aspect. What all are you said you kind of had to adapt a bit with some of the instruments. So what all are you currently playing or a part of?
Well, back when the band first started, it was just 2 instruments, really. It was one of our members played guitar, and he was really good at it. He was, I think, 17, maybe 18 when we first started the band. Just a couple of kids. He was still in, both of them 2 of our members are still in high school. And one of them played the doombag, which is the Arabic hand drum, and the other one played guitar, and both of them were really good. Well, the guy who played the doombag left the band after about a year, maybe a year and a half, going off to do things that you do. And nobody else in the band either had the inclination or the rhythm to take up the drums, so I kind of had to take up a doombag. Went out to do Mars Music back when they were still around, and bought Doombeck and sat down with him a bunch of sessions to try to figure out what he did, and picked up his percussion to try to cover the lack we'd get, because a lot of our songs don't even have guitar, it's just drums.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take those away, then you're just a bunch of guys singing with bad rhythm. Nobody needs that. And we've done a little bit later. That guitar player left, and he would kind of come in and out throughout the years, as depending on whether he was busy on. And then we had another member of the band would try to play the guitar, and it turns out he couldn't play it worth a crap. And then we'd bring somebody else in, and somebody else in. And was there for a while. They were like Spinal Tap drummers. So like at any particular moment, one of them's going to burst into flames, and oh, we got to go find another guitar player. That one just died. And then we had 1 year, I think it was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I looked at the band members at a rehearsal, and I'm like, okay, I challenge everybody to learn a new instrument. And they all went, ooh, good idea, good idea. 1 year later, I was the only one who learned a new instrument. Everybody else is like, well, yeah, I want to learn the whistle. Okay, maybe I'll learn the auto harper or the mandolin. Okay. And nobody ever did. So I decided to learn the bass just for the hell of it, because I always liked bass, so I figured I'd learn how to play bass. And then I was just starting, I guess, to learn the bass somewhat, and we were getting ready to do a show in California, much like we're about to do this year, where we have to go out to the San Diego Sea Shanty Festival. And our guitar player could not make it. This is, I guess, in 2014. Our guitar player couldn't make it, and I was like, well, crap, man, I don't want to get up there and do just strictly a cappella and drums. So the guy who was teaching me bass was a really good guitar player, and I figured, well, I'll just identify, say, 8 songs that I'll learn on guitar in various skill levels and try to get through it. And he showed me how to play these various things on guitar, and I managed to get through 2 days worth of shows without screwing up too awful badly. And we've been slowly kind of adding that in. So now, I guess it was somewhere around 2005, I also picked up a steel drum to bring that in for the occasional song, to add some light to the show. Mm-hmm. And we've had a didgeridoo player throughout the band throughout the years, and he left, of course, so nobody else knows how to play didgeridoo. And I had a didgeridoo sitting at a festival up in Wichita, Kansas, the one year we ever did the Great Plains Renaissance Festival in Wichita. And it was a miserable hot day. It was probably about 110 outside, and they had no shade anywhere. So we went and found this little pocket of shade. It was about 2 feet wide and back one of the stages. And I sat back there with a didgeridoo with nothing to do between shows and figured out how to play it. I already knew how to play it, but I didn't know how to do the circular breathing where you can still expel air out of your mouth while breathing through your nose at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I sat back there until I figured out how to play it and play it consistently. So whoever it was on that stage had to consistently listen to going in the background for 2 hours straight. So it was kind of fun. Some friends of ours, the Scallywags, who used to do the medieval fair back in the days, but now they just do, they have shops set up out there. But they were doing their show, and they had this pirate ship stage that had like a little balcony area in the back, so all the bilge pumps would get up behind it and act like Statler and Waldorf and just, throw bad comments down to their show as they would try to do their comedy. But yeah, we've diversified our musical instruments to a degree. We have another guitar player now, so we have 2 guitar players, 2.5 if you count myself, and then whatever other instruments we keep throwing in the middle of our various mixes. We just did a song over the weekend that is it's going to be one of our bonus tracks, which has a very rock feel to it. So I'm thinking about trying to figure out how to play it on a digital drum kit that I bought my daughter for Christmas. She really wanted to be a drum player, so we started taking her to drum lessons, and then she got bored with it because I already know how to do this, and then she's done. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this drum kit, plug it into the soundboard, and see what I can accomplish. It can't be that hard. I'm sure it'll be incredibly hard, but at the moment, it doesn't sound like it's going to be that hard at all.
Yep.
that hard.
Even if I have
actually
to
remember
simplify
that
it down, where it's just for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, at the moment for our new album, we have 25 songs recorded now, and we're probably going to make it a double album. I think the plan is this will probably be our last CD. It may or may not be the last album, but it'll be our last CD because CDs aren't selling well enough, and I don't want an attic full of CDs going on forever and ever. So we'll make one more, make it a double album. We're trying to get as many songs as we want onto it as we can so that people will have it to play in their players. And then from here on out, it'll probably be just digital releases that people can burn to their own CDs.
Excellent. Cool.
And you can crank those out and, don't have to pay a production house or print house to crank them out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we could even do, limited prints, print off like 50 as opposed to having to have 1,000 of them done at a time. And print them off in our own printers and take them with us to a gig. It's like, if you really want this to listen into your car, here it is. Otherwise, download it.
Well, excellent.
I would tell you what the name of the album is, but it's a closely held secret until we get the album cover done.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we will be looking out for that. Of course, if you have any updates, send them our way, and we will be more than happy to share them. Is there anything you
Yeah,
want
as
to...
people, if they hit our website at thebilgepumps.com, on the front page, the index page, right about in the middle, there's a status bar that tells you where we're at in the making of the album, how many songs we've done, how many songs we've mixed, how close we are to being completed. So if anybody's ever wondering how close this album is to being done, it's right there.
Excellent.
I try to keep it updated.
Of course, that link is in the description.
Yeah, I'm on.
In your everyday life, you work as a full-time programmer, right?
Yes.
Is there anything you can tell us about your work in that?
It is extremely boring and stressful, and that's why you want to be a pirate.
I know all about the boring and stressful.
The good news is, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was basically my thought.
It is the avenue that allows me to do all this other stuff that I like doing. So I don't begrudge it at all. It's nice to have a job that gives me the freedom to be able to go off and be a moron on the weekends or on weeknights, depending on how I feel like it.
Always glad to be able to go do something you enjoy after a long, stressful day.
Yeah, and thank you for providing me an avenue to be a big moron to more people.
Absolutely.
All three of them.
All three of you.
There was three.
Everybody clap simultaneously. You feel the
It's three concurrent.
We'll get the butterfly effect. Everybody will clap, and we'll get a thunderstorm in Southern California.
Okay. Thunderstorm.
Or Ashton Kutcher will die. I'm not sure which.
Well, do we want Ashton Kutcher to die? I like Ashton Kutcher.
The movie.
It's from the movie The Butterfly Effect.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you have to explain pop culture references, you're doing it wrong.
It's been a long day.
Or it's an old pop culture reference, and I'm too old to be talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm younger than him, and I got it.
Yay!
It's been a very long day. I work in a furniture store moving couches all day, so it's been a very long day for me.
You played a guitar on the MTV.
All right.
Sorry, that was another pop culture reference.
Yeah. No, I'm a Dire Straits fan.
Oh, so you know about you got to move these microwave ovens.
Yep. Well.
That song confuses me so much.
Yeah, and the music video and everything, that the fact that Weird Al somehow managed to make it even stranger.
And when that video came out, I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. I'm like, look, it's a cartoon video. It's awesome. Kind of like when Aha's Take On Me came out, I would just sit and stare at that forever, just like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And now you can still look back at it and see, how cool it was, but at the same time you're seeing like, oh, these guys are kind of pretentious. Look at them acting like dorks through this whole thing, but it's still telling It's like, oh, I'm slamming into the thing. Look, I'm a broody rock star, and we're gonna walk off into the sunset together. It's like, it's very Zoolander there at the very end where he comes walking in. It's like, oh, I'll throw the magnum at her and she'll fall in love with me.
Mm-hmm.
So hot right now.
Yeah, back when music was still good.
You know, they never really had hardly any other hits in the U.S., and I didn't realize how they're apparently thoroughly popular in Europe still. They were like one of the biggest names to tour around Europe. They make incredible amounts of money.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like what's her name, Kylie Minogue, who did a couple of songs of middling hits in the U.S., but around the rest of the world, she's way bigger than like Madonna or anything like that. Everybody loves her, but here in the U.S., they're like, yeah, I kind of know that name. Who is that?
All right.
People in the U.S. are weird. Wait for the moment that they decide they can't live without cheeseball pirate music, and they just go and buy it in droves. Everybody keeps telling me that any moment it's going to take off.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to help you out with that. I know.
This podcast right here is going to be the catalyst.
I hope so. That's what we want to do. Well,
it may be 5 years from now, and your Gen X podcast will be like, that's the coolest thing ever. Let's go back and listen to them old episodes.
Yeah, 5-10 years from now, go back. There's some guy sitting on a cannon. Yeah, maybe we should watch that one.
5 years from now, some kid will be like, what's a podcast? You're so old.
This thing
Days we just beam it right into our retinas, man.
Yeah, this thing was on YouTube. What the hell is YouTube?
YouTube?
YouTube will still be around. It'll just be, in your head.
Okay.
It'll actually be, it'll be like the Taco Bell and Demolition Man. It'll be the only channel left. So all channels are YouTube now.
Yeah. Hopefully things go well with you finishing this album. I know I'm looking forward to it.
It's been fun, and we've definitely put a lot more into this album because we have our own studio now, so we have the luxury of taking it at our own pace. We can pick a couple of songs, get them down to exactly where we want them, and then go in and do them while they're still fresh in your head. And some of that might mean that it's 2.5 years to finish a double album, but that's what it takes to get what we want. As if it's going to be our last CD, we want it to be our best CD.
Absolutely. Do you have any events coming up you'd like to plug?
Well, if anybody's out on the left coast, we are going to be going out to California on August, I think it's the 12th and 13th, for the San Diego Sea Shanty Festival, and then we'll be in Long Beach at the Pirates Cove, which is a pirate store there at a place called Shoreline Village, which is right out there on the coast, kind of a popular tourist shopping area. And then we're going to be something more in your neck of the woods in September. The inaugural Oklahoma City Renaissance Festival will be going on the first 2 weekends of September. And it's the same guy who used to put on the Lawton Renaissance Festival 9 years ago or so, and he called us up and wanted us to be one of the first performers that he brought on to come back up there. And to me, we have a lot of fans in Oklahoma from our years of doing Muskogee and Norman. So we think it's going to be a cool way to do another show up there, because every year at Norman I get somebody walk up to me and be like, "Hey, when you guys coming back to Oklahoma?" I'm like, "Well, find somebody to hire us. We'll come back. Yeah, I'm not just going to come up to Oklahoma and manufacture my own show." And this year it finally happened. He's been circling around for a while, wanting to do another Renaissance fair. But he's also the guy who does all of the Trails of Fear haunted trails up in Oklahoma. And he has about 5 or 6 of those, I guess, around the state now. And so he's pretty successful with those, makes a lot of money. And this Renfest is going to take place in the city limits of Oklahoma City. And as far as I know, it's the only Renaissance festival that takes place inside of a major metropolitan city limits. Usually they're just outside of town, and the people or the building codes are a little more relaxed. But he's going to have to do everything, to code, and everything's going to have to be, stamped and perfect because it's going to be right in the middle of the Oklahoma City's entertainment district, right next to Remington Park and the zoo and
Bricktown.
And it's north of Bricktown. It's north of the capital. It's where Frontier City is.
Oh, excellent.
So he's going to be right there in an area that is already, people are geared to know where that is, so he can help draw some more people in. So I'm hoping that'll turn out to be a really good show. And at the moment, it's the first 2 weekends of September, including Labor Day Monday.
All right. Well, I know I'm going to have to try to make it up for that.
And I'm hoping that we get our own little. He's like, you guys want your own pirate spot? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, okay, we'll make it happen. So we may have our own pirate zone up there somewhere that we'll be hanging out in the pirate section of the fair. We'll charge a sub-admission to get into the pirate section. Yeah, we know you pay to the gate, but this is the special pirate tax.
Well, I guess...
Leave your room at the door.
I guess we're going to have to try to make it up there. Maybe we'll make it up for that. We'll have to try to do a little live thing up there. We'll try to broadcast part of the show. See if we can get back in touch with you guys up there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Always a good time.
We could do a couple of songs on the air or something like that, live.
Absolutely. And I know I'm trying to find some excuse to get you up to this area. That's going to be a wonderful sell. That's a bit different from what I usually do.
Yeah.
Right now I'm in the process of I went from metal to epic rap battles to metal to a little bit of rap. Now I've got country artists, and then I had some steampunk stuff, and now I'm just trying to push everything into the realm of pirates. So we'll figure it out soon.
Well, pirates are a little bit of all that.
Absolutely.
You got your folksy pirates doing the country. You've got your airship pirates doing your steampunk. You got your people like Ailstorm doing your pirate rock and metal.
Yep, that's always up here. At least up here in this area, you mention the word pirate, and everyone goes to Airship Isabella.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, everyone was always, well, I'm trying to work with this pirate band and try to bring them up, and they're like, the Isabella's a band? Like, no, these are other pirates. These are real pirates. These don't fly.
We have shared a stage to a degree with the Airship Isabella people down at Dickens on the Strand each year. They're part of the people that help populate their steampunk square area.
Excellent.
And they have a little rave type show they do. They call it the ball, but basically they bring in like a steampunky type rock band that will do like a late night ball. And we, for some reason, for like 4 years in a row, we were always the first band to come on to that same stage the next day, like on Sunday at noon. And the Airship Isabella people would take all the benches and scatter them all over the place and never put them back. We're like, God damn it! And we have to go back and grab every one of the benches and drag them back to where they're supposed to go. So I owe them some hard labor. They owe me some hard labor next time I see them.
You said
I brought a log. Won't you drag that log around for me?
I'm gonna. This is the second week in a row where we've been talking with someone, and it's brought up someone else we know that I've got to send a time code to. So I'm gonna have to find this time code and send it to Cap. But you said the steampunk rock band. The first thing that come to my mind, at least the one that we usually work with, is a band called Marquise of Vaudeville, which is also from the Dallas area.
Yeah, they I think they're the ones who did one of those raves down there one year. I saw them in Dallas at an event. We went to go watch Steam Powered Giraffe, and the Marquise of Vaudeville was opening for them. So there's a completely different tone of band between one or the other, because I never heard of Marquise of Vaudeville till we got there. They were very much kind of like a metal version of The Cure almost, and
I
then
can see that.
Steam Power Giraffe comes on and does all their more folksy comedy type stuff. It was a culture shock.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It always kind of amazes me. It just turns into kind of a small world that it seems like everyone we talk to always seems to kind of know each other. It's always just kind of amazes me the fact that everything always ends up coming full circle with things like this.
Yeah, there was speaking of tying the room together, my Highland Games troop that I was in that first year that we had kind of expanded out, we had a performer in our group. His name was Wolf. That's all I ever knew about is Wolf. You know, you got up these Ren fairs and everybody just has one name and it's whatever you give it to them. So you're just like, hey, Wolf, what's happening? And then we were buying tickets for that particular steampunk ball that the Marquise de Vaudeville and Steam Powered Giraffe were doing, and it was being sold by a guy named Aaron von Blackwolf. And I'm like, well, that's a steampunk name if I ever heard one in my life. And I found out later on that that's the same dude, you know, that he had expanded out and did that show.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was looking at I was doing my regular job and looking at something in the employee database, and the name Aaron von Blackwolf came across. And I found out that he had been working in the same building with me for years, and I had no idea he was down there.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's the same Wolf? Holy crap. And, you know, by the time I found out about it, he had already left and gone out to do something else. But I'm like, he was working here the whole time?
Mm-hmm. That's always such a small world, which... throwing in a little bit of a small plug here, this October, for people in the Amarillo area, Marquise of Vaudeville is going to be back in Amarillo. They're doing some sort of ball event. It is a formal ball. It's also some sort of fundraiser. I'm not sure on the exact details, but we're working on trying to bring Marquise of Vaudeville back up here. We've got some other people we work with. We're trying to bring back up this fall. If we can make it work, we'd love to bring you up this fall. It would make a very strange yet interesting show. That is the
Everybody's got to bring
response I
like
was
5 hats. It's like you just pull one hat out and you just swap it out, depending on who you're listening to at the time. Unless you can come up with a hat that you can just, you know, a steampunk hat where you punch a button and it just switches from tricorn to cowboy hat to top hat. Somebody out there needs to get to work on that.
Somebody.
I would do it, but I got stuff.
Yeah, somebody needs to. This is also a time code I'm going to have to send to Cap, because that seems like something that would be right up ASI's alley. But
that sounds like the name of a bad album, right up ASI's alley.
Oh, that's wonderful. This has been fun. But Craig, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us.
Sure. So hope I wasn't too long-winded.
No, that's perfectly fine. We go and talk and just try to have a good time with everyone. So that's something that we're just trying to do with this. We're bringing on a wide variety of people. Just trying to bring on a wide variety of people that are shared within. I'm trying to think of exactly how to explain it, and Brett keeps looking at me funny.
Everybody has to know somebody that you know, or it doesn't work.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And now we've been staring at the stream status here on YouTube, and it keeps going good, bad, stopped, good, bad.
Oh crap!
Now it's bad again.
I don't think it's actually changed any. I just don't know what YouTube's doing.
Yep.
Is
So
one of you standing on the data cable?
so if anyone from YouTube is watching this, what the hell? You never know. They've usually got the one person that's like, background noise or something. But yeah, before Brett was looking at me funny, what I was trying to say there is we're trying a wide variety of people, just trying to get things shared. And Sorry, YouTube is freaking me out right now.
Pretend it's nothing.
Next week you have Hugh Jackman, right?
Similar. No. Actually, next week we have former vocalist of the Christian metal band Ilya, now turned Zana, Susie Martinez. She just
Nice.
released her new single today, or yesterday, actually, so you can check that out. I don't even have the thumbnail built yet. I feel kind of bad for that. But I don't have the thumbnail built because Susie hasn't sent me her information. So, Susie, if you're listening, please send me your information for that thumbnail. Called out on air. So, next week...
Stream canceled.
No, Susie's good. But we've got a wide variety of people coming up in the future. Everyone from... of course, last week we had the voice actor. This week we have... the pirate, which is you've done
Whatever I am.
a wide variety of things. Next week we have the metal musician. We have a couple other genres of musicians coming on in the future. We've got some of our more interesting people. Our carnies are going to be on in the future. That one.
Carnies. Very small hands. Smell like cabbage.
That show, I am guaranteed, is going to end up running longer than an hour, probably around an hour and a half, just because of all of the stories from what we've heard to what we haven't heard. And the only thing I can say about that is it is impossible for me to get mad at the man that I've stepped on the back of his head and shoved his face into broken glass. It is impossible for me to get mad at him
Nice.
now.
Okay, that reminds me of a quick story.
Oh, no, you're good.
Speaking of carnies, we were back when we were doing our stunt show. I guess it was about our 4th year. I decided to go and take a corporate retreat, so to speak, and we went to Six Flags down here in Dallas when they were still doing the Batman stunt show down here. And I figured we'll go see what it looks like when you throw money at it. And we got there, and it was they did it as a circus theme. So instead of they had a spot in the middle of it where the Joker takes over the circus, and then all the characters disappear, and it just becomes you watching a bunch of circus performers do their stuff, which is really cool. The sway poles and whatnot, which still cause testicular shrinkage like nobody's business watching somebody on the sway poles, and then the motorcycles inside of the roller cages and things like that. But you could call those are stunts, but they're not really the stunts that most people expect to see, which are like high falls and body burns and things like that. So the one time when the one stunt that I remember seeing in the entire thing was at the very end of it, the Batman shoots the Bazooka at the Joker and blows him off the balcony. Well, the balcony had a breakaway facade on the front of it that the Joker was supposed to fall through. But what had happened was he shot the bazooka at the Joker, and the Joker ducked down behind his balcony, pushed open the front of the balcony, crawled out, and then fell. We're just like, that's not really a fall. That's just kind of a dive. And the rest of the show was great and everything. And we hung out afterward, and we caught the stunt performers as they were on their way out. We just wanted to shoot the breeze and talk to the various performers. And the guy playing the Joker came out, and we're like, hey man, nice fall, good high up. And he's like, yeah man, I had to duck down because last time that explosion went off, it about blew the back of my head off, so I wanted to get out of the way before it went off. And then the guy who played Batman came out, and I was like, hey man, good show. And he's like, yeah, did you see my stunt? And we're like, what stunt did you do? He's like, when I came off the car. And what had happened is the Batmobile came rolling out, and Batman was was riding the hood, and the car came to a stop, and he did a shoulder roll off of it and jumped up. And we're like, oh, he's like, yeah, when I rolled off the car. We're like, yeah, man, that was awesome. I never would have thought. He did it so smooth it didn't even look like a stunt, man. So they had apparently their budget was spent on all the circus performers, which were awesome, but there wasn't a whole lot of there's like 2 actors or 3 actors carrying the rest of the show while the circus performers did their thing. So sometimes money doesn't solve the problem.
Well, if they would have really had Batman, they wouldn't have had a money problem.
That's true.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne just cover everything.
Yeah, they can always cover it up with the giant flame explosions that you can feel the heat on your face from 50 yards away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with that, I can say from experience that pyro is no joke. Of course, my working with pyro has been with a wonderful Christian rock band, but I was at the very back of a 1,500 seat auditorium, and they've got it set up on stage, and those flame pods go off. You can feel it. You can feel them far away. You know, there's.
Don't pull a great white.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Nothing says Christian metal like explosions, or not. They're not even metal. They're just plain rock. Yeah. Nothing says Christian rock.
It's the devil's fire, man. We're telling you what to avoid.
Yeah. The best part was they start their intro, and all of these people are like, "Yeah, they're about to start playing," and they rush the stage. And the intro stops, and you have a couple of these little, like, 808 drops go off, and then the guy just says, "What's up, Texas?" and fireballs go off, and everyone takes a couple steps back, like, what the hell is going on here?
I want you to get up close, just so you can look down into this pot and tell me what you see.
Anyone still got any eyebrows up there?
Yeah.
If you can see and hear me, we're gonna rock your face off.
Oh, that's another time code I gotta share. Like I said, all of these people are people I know, and I kind of feel bad bringing stuff like this up, but at the same time I don't, because it's hilarious. So this is another time code I've got to share. That's wonderful. If you ever get a chance to check out a band, Seventh Day Slumber, definitely do it. They've got a great live show.
If you gotta do it right, you gotta do it right. If you people can see and hear me, we're gonna rock your face off. There, the appropriate drop to use.
Yeah, if you don't sound like James Hetfield or Lemmy, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You gotta have
Who's
a
a better
couple
guitar
extra.
player, Lemmy or God? Trick question. Lemmy is God.
Yes, I've a friend of mine that I've worked with, actually the guy that got me into doing live sound and everything. He cannot stand religious jokes. He's Christian and everything, but that is his absolute favorite joke of all time.
Oh yeah.
Is what's the difference between Lemmy and God? Trick question. Lemmy is God. Of course.
You gotta admire a very devout Christian who thinks that Motorhead is his favorite guitar player or favorite band.
Of course, very, very sad day. About almost 2 years ago, rest in peace, Lemmy. Motorhead. I was a big Motorhead fan. That was a sad day. Of course, 2016 was the year of dead rock stars. That was just bad.
Yeah, that was the year that Pete Steele died too. Or no, it was 2015 from typo negative.
Oh yeah. I'm still going back 2012 no 2011 when Dio died.
Oh yeah.
That one still gets to me to this day. We haven't done it in a couple years, but the year after he died, or either the year after or the 2 years after, we started doing a show every May, and all of the proceeds we donated to the Stand Up and Shout Cancer Fund. We haven't done that in a couple years though. We may bring that back next year.
We had a series of unfortunate coincidences there for a couple of years in a row where we would go up and do a rock cover, a pirate rock cover of a song at our Pirates on the Prairie concerts here in Grand Prairie. And we'd have it all planned out, and then the month before, the rock person would die. And it happened 2 years in a row. Like I did it with Bowie, because we were going to do our Buccaneer City, our version of Suffragette City, and he died right before then. And then we were going to do a version of The Wait, And then that guy from the band died like the next year, and we were like, "Oh crap! Who are we gonna do this year?" It's like, well, we were thinking about doing Van Morrison, and we started watching the news feeds. Van Morrison was gonna die this year, but he didn't. He survived.
Yeah,
Survived the Bilge Pumps curse.
So every time you try to do a cover, someone ends up dying. I mean, maybe
I wonder if
next
that
year,
means.
maybe next year just do a Bieber cover or something.
Yeah, I don't know if I can bring myself.
Well, if everything.
I
goes
wonder if we
according-
did a cover of Weird Al, if everybody would die.
That's great. I would love to see what you could do. Put your own twist on a Weird Al parody. That would be amazing. How do I donate to that? Do we need to start a GoFundMe?
We can do a pirate version of Yoda,
Oh, that would be amazing.
or find a way to make a Star Wars parody of a pirate song. That would be a very
Ooh.
Weird Al thing to do.
That,
Star Wars parody of a pirate parody of a song.
What do you do with a drunken Jedi?
Yeah, what do you do with a drunken Jedi? Just as much as I hate to say it, you take drunken sailor, you make it drunken Jedi. You've got to do something about the younglings. I would feel very bad for saying that, but you've got to put that in there. Oh God, no! I don't know if the mic just picked that up, but that was wrong. Did you pick up on that there, Craig? Did you?
I did not.
He very quietly whispered, "You put him in a room with a bunch of younglings."
Yeah. Gather them all up and kill the children. Gather them all up and kill the children.
There you go. You've got Brett's contact info. You two can collab on that. There you go. We'll make that a Gen XP exclusive.
I'm going to bed.
Oh God. Yeah, please don't. Please don't reference killing the younglings again. I feel like we've touched on a wide variety of subjects tonight.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
We're diversified. We have a diversified portfolio.
Just
Was that a good thing?
look at the disappointing look on Snoop's face.
Disappointed.
That's because he just ran out of spliffs.
We've got this wonderful styrofoam cutout of Snoop Dogg for some reason. It was left over at a show. We were loading out and people are like, "You want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" They were just gonna throw it away. And the angle, it's like he's looking down on us with disappointment.
We have to get that in the background of a video sometime.
Yeah, we will.
have to.
We'll make sure in a future video in a future podcast we've got Snoop in the back.
Did you guys hear any of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stuff this year?
Very little of it.
Well, Snoop was doing the introduction for Tupac going into the Rock Hall of Fame, and he's a really good storyteller. But he started telling a story of how they all went down to the Cayman Islands, and Tupac dragged Snoop down there when Snoop was just first coming into the business. And he said while they were down there, they were hanging out, and Tupac rolled up a big fatty and handed it over to him and told him, "Hey, you need to try this," and that was his first joint. And he said that if that doesn't tell you nothing, the legend of Tupac, he gave Snoop Dogg his first joint. It's like, yeah, that's legendary status right there.
Oh, good.
If you were the guy who introduced Willie Nelson to weed, you'd be a legend. I find out it was like Hank Williams Sr. or somebody like that you wouldn't expect. Total stoner, man.
This has definitely been fun. But Craig, thanks for joining us. Of course, we've got links in the description. Check out the social media. Make sure you follow them. As I said last week, follow them on social media. Maybe not in real life, but follow them on social media.
Look out behind you, Ben.
Oh. No, I said follow them, not you follow me.
Oh.
And we know you're not behind Snoop.
Well, if I'm following you, they're following you too.
Picture, if you will.
Yeah, a bunch of people standing behind you, looking at you like Donald Sutherland, going,
Oh, this has been an absolute blast. Craig, it's been great getting to sit down and chat with you. Looking forward to the new album. Of course, we will make sure and follow the website for the progress. If there's ever anything you would like us to share, feel free to send it over. Anyone that's ever in an area where the Bilge Pumps are playing, please go check them out. It's definitely a great live show to catch. Like I said earlier, every time I go to the Medieval Fair, basically every year, that's always on my list to catch. Always a great show, hilarious, good music. Definitely check it out.
hear a song done in 4 keys at once.
That I've
In
got
3 tempos.
Yeah, I live streamed the first set on a Saturday back in April, and the one thing that stuck out to me the most was the quote from you was, "It's all about alternate timings."
Yeah.
Just coming out of I want to say it was Lever Gianni. You were coming out of that and about a second behind everyone else. Just it was
Yeah.
perfect.
That's kind of an inside joke among the band, because we had one of our ex-band members used to do that, and he thought he was the coolest dude in the world by coming in a half beat farther than everybody else. So I had to take it to the extreme and just see how much farther I can drag that next beat out as long as I possibly can, to where you're almost in the next verse before you finish the chorus.
Yeah, I love things like that. I love catching up with people, especially being one of the few who know of a specific inside joke, which completely reminds me, we're gonna have to get back with our improvisers soon. That totally reminds me, but that's a story for another day.
Oh god.
Yeah,
You've done it now, Henry.
we referenced this last week and he didn't pick up on it, so I'm gonna send him this timestamp and see if he picks up on it now.
Well, obviously he's gonna pick up on it now.
Yeah,
I hope at least.
I don't know.
Otherwise, that doesn't bode well for him.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Let's just time code this. Corey J. Phillips. Make sure you watch this part right here. But as I
Yeah,
said,
you're making it pretty blatant. This spot right here, your name at this particular place.
Yep, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna throw big flashing letters up on the screen. Corey J. Phillips, right here.
Let's see. Let's do that now.
But absolutely, like I said, next week we've got Susie Martinez, Zana, former vocalist of Ilya, dropping her new solo album late this year. Just dropped her debut single yesterday. Go check that out. This has been a wonderful chat. This has been a very long chat, but this has been a wonderful chat. Craig, thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
And we will see everyone next week.
See you at a mixtape near you.
Everyone, enjoy your evening. Tip your waiters.